Welcome to Politics Unplugged. I'm Ann Trujillo. The U.S. economy is surging faster than it has in years last quarter. New numbers from the Commerce Department on Friday show the economy growing at a rate of 4.1%, its fastest pace in 4 years. President Trump talking about the surge with reporters shortly after that report came out. Now, he says years of abusive trade practices by other countries have come to an end.
As the trade deals come in one by one, we're going to go a lot higher than these numbers, and these are great numbers. These numbers are very, very sustainable. This isn't a one-time shot. I happen to think we're going to do extraordinarily well in our next report, next quarter. I think it's going to be outstanding.
Now, private forecasters aren't as certain the growth is as sustainable as the president claims. They say while much of last quarter's growth was a result of people spending their tax cuts, a lot of it was driven by exporters who pushed to get their products delivered ahead of retaliatory tariffs that are driving up prices on everything from imported cars to Coke. Colorado companies have been hit by those retaliatory tariffs, including one from Canada, and those include Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory, Molson Coors, Lockheed Martin, and even Stranahan's whiskey. And Colorado's agricultural industry is taking a big hit. The value of Colorado's corn and wheat has tumbled about 20% since the tariffs took effect. And Don Brown of Colorado's Agriculture, who is Colorado's Agriculture Commissioner, is watching these developments closely and is joining us today for Politics Unplugged. So thank you so much for being here. So what are you thinking when you hear all of this talk about tariffs and particularly retaliatory practices?
Well, I think, of course, in agriculture, we've been going through 2 or 3 tough years, 4 or 5. We've seen the peak in our commodity prices in 2012. A lot of our commodity prices are half what they were then. And so we've seen a 50% reduction in corn and wheat values to a large degree. And then coupled with the tariff component makes it very, very difficult. We often in agriculture feel like we're the tip of the spear when it comes to retaliatory tariffs.
What do you mean by that?
Well, first of all, you know, you'll mention, you hear China and some of these countries immediately mention, we're going to put a tariff on soybeans. That's the first thing you hear. Then we hear, well, grain sorghum. We're going to do that on grain sorghum. Beef, those sort of things. And so it seems like we're typically one of the first ones that they put a retaliatory tariff on.
So what does that mean then for farmers right now? You were telling me that just here in Colorado, we've been dealing with this extreme drought situation.
Right.
So what kind of shape are farmers in right now?
Well, they're struggling. I mean, there's no denying it. Farming's a little bit, excuse the phrase, it's either feast or famine.
Yeah.
And right now we're certainly in a famine component. We're too good at what we do, and we raise more than people can consume. So that makes that difficult, coupled with the tariffs. And I recognize that some of this needs to be done. I don't think there's any question about it. But we're seeing it on all fronts across the world. We're seeing TPP, which went away. It's now TPP 11, not TPP 12. NAFTA's in trouble. Mexico and Canada. We're quarreling with the EU at this moment, and China as well. So that doesn't leave many folks left to purchase our ag products without some form of retaliatory.
Because you raised those trade deals, and it was the president who said that the U.S. doesn't have any trade deals that are any good. Would you agree with that?
Well, who am I to say? But I do know NAFTA has been, yeah. Well, NAFTA for agriculture, particularly, NAFTA's been really good to us, and we were excited about being in TPP. It would have taken some of our tariffs. Colorado's a big beef state. 50% of what we do in agriculture is beef. With TPP, Japan's tariff is currently 38%. With TPP 12, it would have dropped to 9 over several years. We're going to remain at 38. Australia's in the TPP 11. They'll be at 9%. We can't compete with that.
So with all the talk happening right now, take us into the mindset of farmers and people in the ag industry right now here in Colorado.
Well, they're a patient group. I mean, they're a patient group. And secondly, the president recently announced his $12 billion tariff relief package for farmers and ranchers. I think that is welcome. People appreciate that. I think that's recognition of the suffering that's been inflicted on us to a certain degree by the tariff talk. But I think we also recognize that that doesn't cure the problem.
Because some people view that as a handout.
They
and they're not liking that
certainly do,
either, right?
and I recognize that. And secondly, the other component of this is those commodities still have to go someplace. They're still being raised. They have to go someplace. So it's a short-term shall we say, not even fix, but a short-term Band-Aid on a much larger situation. We need these worldwide markets. 1 out of every row of corn goes someplace. 1 out of every row of soybeans goes someplace else in the world.
So what does it mean for those of us who, we don't deal with agriculture, those of us who live in the city? So what does this all mean, big picture, for us as well?
Well, I would like to say that typically you eat cheaper than any other place in the world at about 6.7 to 6.8% of your disposable income is spent on food. We eat much cheaper here than any place in the world. You probably won't actually at the grocery store see little or no impact. 8 to 10% of most food dollar really goes to the farmer, and that's about it. Some of the animal proteins are higher, but on the whole, you will not feel that impact, except agriculture is Colorado's number 2 or 3 economy. And long term, when it suffers, those dollars are not here to spend in Colorado.
And you said we have all of this product and maybe know where to go, so then what happens to?
Well, typically farmers will have to cut back production. I mean, that's what happens to it.
And so from here, what would you like to see happen for on behalf of Colorado farmers?
Well, I would like to see these trade agreements, resolution of them accelerated. That's what I would like to see. We need to resolve the issues with China. We need to resolve the issues with the EU. We need NAFTA in place in some fashion so that we have, business does not like uncertainty.
So the president also said he just opened up Europe to farmers. Are you seeing any?
Well,
any movement?
Part of the problem is that he's talked about soybeans, which he's correct. Europe has decided or said they were going to purchase more soybeans. The problem is they only import about 10% of the amount of soybeans that China imports. So even if there's no way they're going to fill that gap. It's a positive sign. I mean, we shouldn't be too negative here. It's a positive sign, but yet it will not. They do not have the capacity to absorb what China is putting tariffs on.
Okay, well, it's a great conversation to have. There's so much to learn about tariffs and the impact on all of us, for sure. Thank you so much, Don Brown.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
We will be talking about teens and vaping when we come back.